Hello and welcome to the DFR Down Under Show for episode 4. Welcome everyone to our brand new layout, and for once technology has come good with a brand new layout and stream. Welcome to everyone looking at us on Facebook Live. Say hello, send us a message, and first of all, let me introduce myself again. I'm Smatho 10, or Luke Matheson, one of the contributors here at the DFR site. And joining me on my side here is the senior contributor of the DFR website, Big Hef, Tristan Heffernan. Good evening. How are you?
Matho, good to be here again. I'm pumped. AFL's getting very close now, isn't it? We're only a week away. I've learned a bit of golf actually this morning driving into work. We'll get to that pretty soon. But yeah, pumped to be here as always.
Look, big show we got here tonight. We are going to go through a few topics and some big news that came out later today, which we'll possibly touch on later on in the show. As I mentioned, you can interact by sending us a comment/question throughout the stream, where it's on our Facebook page. If you've got any DFS questions throughout this evening, throughout the show, hit us a like, share against your mates, and obviously we'll try and get a few of your comments later on in the show. So, Hef, how's the week been? Obviously, a bit of cricket's on tonight with the Aussies going on, and obviously you've got half your eye on some horses in Launceston. How's it all been?
Less said about Launceston, the better. Couldn't find a winner there, but there's always next week for that. But I got involved with the JLT after you. Last time we spoke, you talked up the JLT and gave me a few tips. So round 2, I got involved and played a few lineups and a few head-to-heads, and that was good fun. So yeah, just really wet the whistle and can't wait for things to get started next week.
Yep, so am I. A lot of content on the DFR site will be coming in the next couple of days, and that all kicked off actually this morning, where I did a nice preview of the PGA Championship, or the Players Championship at TPC Sawgrass, and I was very privileged to sit down and talk to JK123 about the Players Championship. If you head to the dailyfantasyrankings.com.au website and look for our articles on PGA Golf, you'll be able to see my recent article regarding the Players Championship. And the halfway down, you'll be able to see the link to the podcast that I did with JK. Was a very good moment for myself. First time I was able to talk to JK, and yeah, learnt a lot about PGA golf in terms of how to construct lineups, talk about picking players, and just having general fun playing DFS golf. Have you actually heard the podcast yet, Hef?
I did. I listened to it on the way to work this morning. It was a little bit late. I had to listen to the end of it because I couldn't put it down. I know nothing about golf, basically, but if you want to get involved with the big prize pools on DraftKings for the golf, it's a must listen. JK, he didn't really hold back, did he? He gave so much great information, and just his talk on ownership and how he builds his lineups and what sort of things he looks at. You can take that to pretty much any sport you play in DFS and apply those concepts everywhere. So even if you're not into golf, I think it was definitely worth a listen because JK was giving up the goods. Well done, Matho, for getting it out of him.
Look, I wouldn't call it a world exclusive, but yeah, it was certainly a big learning curve on that particular podcast. So make sure you do check it out. You will see my tips for the week, and obviously I had JK give me a hand with those particular golfers. We're pretty big on Tiger Woods, and we're also pretty big on Tony Finau. So two of my personal favourite golfers on the tour. And the particular golf, and back in the particular golfer that I've been cheering on from the sidelines, Rafa Cabrera-Bello, who's been killing it lately. I've actually put him in the doghouse this week with the big fade. Am I going crazy there, Hef?
Well, as I say, I don't really know, but I think you let JK talk you into that big fade, so we'll see how that goes. But it's the beauty of DFS. 1 week you're on them, and the next week you're hard against them. So good luck with that one.
Now, as part of the articles here on the DFR site, we actually, myself and obviously yourself, have been doing the DFR Dragons picks, which is four of our best bets for the weekend in terms of the particular contests. And as we heard on the pod, we were pretty big on Tiger Woods, and it's probably the last time in history you're going to get him at a ridiculous odds of $26 for an outright winner. And look, I've also hit Tony Finau hard by beating Rafa in a head-to-head and also looking at a top 10. So go check it out on the DFR website. Look for the links to the PGA Golf, and you'll be able to check out my article for the players this Thursday evening. Quick look at DraftKings actually shows that the contest, the actual $1 million contest, is actually rapidly filling. So I suggest if you need to put an entry in, do it quite quickly. Hef, you got any tips for the players off the top of your head?
Best tip I can give is go and listen to the podcast because I do not have a clue. Is Craig Stadler playing?
You got the
Fuzzy Zola.
No, Fuzzy is on the Champions Tour now. Just grinding away on the Champions.
My experience in golf is the old Sony Mega Drive PGA style. That's as good as I've got. So go and listen to the podcast. Like I said, even if you're not into golf, you're going to learn so much from listening to it. So, and you get some great golf tips as well. So yeah, get into it.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to the next big contest that's on the DFS horizon. Is actually the NRL. Kicks off Thursday evening with the Storm of Melbourne playing the Brisbane Broncos at Amy Park. Again, I've put up my little tips, and for the actual game itself, Draft Stars have come to the party with a $12,000 contest. Moneyball have also come to the party with an $8,000 contest, all for a $15 entry. Again, go to the website and check out my article. Hef, since you don't know much about PGA, how's your NRL knowledge?
It's almost as good as my PGA knowledge. They're pretty good prize pools to kick off the season, 12 and 8, I think. So you're going to have to give me some tips. I can put a couple of lineups in, Matho. What am I looking for? I'm an AFL man, Southern Australia. We don't really venture into the rugby. I don't know how you got into it. I know you used to play. You look like a linebacker. You used to play back in the day. Do you still play?
Retired a couple of years ago, but I've pretty much played every position on a rugby union field. So from fullback all the way pretty much to second row. Don't worry about being a prop. I've got the ears still. So
still got them intact. So what am I looking for when I'm building my NRL teams? If I want to throw a couple of lineups in.
All right. So with NRL, you'll need to look at team lists around 1 hour before lock. Pretty much like in cricket, coaches can pretty much pull a Swifty and pull players from a reserve or from a bench at any time. It has improved in the last couple of years where team lists come out on Tuesday, and as the days go along the week, they cut their squads from 23 to 21 to 19 to 17 for a final 17. So, yeah, make sure you check team lists. Now, when you're playing the single contest or single slates, in a GPP, you could possibly look at a couple of bench players, but if you're playing cash or head-to-head with any players on NRL, it's best to try and get a contest or a lineup with all starters in your lineup itself. Another good tip is actually look who's on the bench who might actually correlate who actually has minutes. Minutes is king in NRL because obviously you don't score any points sitting on the pine. So, for example, in this Storm game tomorrow, Cameron Smith is obviously one of the immortal player of the rugby league. If he has a backup hooker on his bench tomorrow, it will start getting you thinking, is he going to play the full 80 minutes? So always check your team list for that. Game theory is also another good way to look at it. Who's the favourite? How many points are a particular team is favoured by? So currently the Storm are actually favoured by 3.5 points, which is around a try for the tomorrow evening. But in my article itself, I actually was being pretty big on the Broncos itself with a new coach, new lineup in the forwards, but they've got a very settled back line. So I'm actually targeting a few of the Broncos backs tomorrow's and Nick Reeman, the halfback. So as you can see, the article's up on the website as well. Check out my tips, and obviously it's very easy to put in a couple of sides in tomorrow's contest, because I believe NRL has the spotlight for pretty much for 1 week, and like
1 week.
yourself, Hef, 1 week we'll get the 1 week spotlight, and obviously like your players like yourself, Hef, if you're going to chuck a team in, you might as well be in it to win it.
Well, yeah, we got no AFL this week, so that might get me through. Yeah, sounds good. I'll jump on and have a read of the tips. I noticed you were claiming you're a Storm man, and all you want to do is tip me Broncos. So,
well, that's how sometimes
having a
DFS
bit each
works.
way.
You can't just look at your favourite side and just jam in your favourite side, unless look, they're very successful, the Storm. But yeah, sometimes you might just have to make your own game theory and see if you can zig where other people's are zagging. I will add, Felipe Fusi is a stud. Make sure you get him in. Kenny Bromwich and Jack Bird, my value plays tomorrow. And then, as I said, anyone who's on the bench, you probably don't want in your sides at all.
Beautiful.
Let's move on to my Dragons picks as well. As you said, a bit of a flavour there with the Broncos. I think it's going to be a very scrappy affair tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be high scoring, so I've gone the unders in the 43.5, which is the line at the total match points at the moment. I'm pretty big on Jermaine Asako, the big second-year player. So I've got him his first try scorer, and I reckon it's going to be a close game. So I've got the old Melbourne winning at halftime, but then lose the match. So a bit of value there at $4.50. So make sure you check out those Dragons picks on my article website. You'll be able to find them at the bottom of the page each time. All right, clear the space, clear the room. Hef's been sitting there patiently waiting for me to finish up. Let's get into the AFL. We're 1 week away. And before we even think about talking about round one, we must look at the preseason. So JLT happened the last 2 weeks. What's your initial thoughts from the JLT that you've pulled out so far, Hef?
So JLT2 looked pretty close to the real stuff. JLT1, I know a lot of different players were playing that we haven't seen before, but a lot of teams really used it as a really good tune-up JLT2. So I think if we're going to base our decisions on any pre-season work, I think that round that's just gone is what we want to look at. We did notice a lot of the midfielders getting some massive points. Tom Rockcliffe had 170 odds. Angus Brayshaw continued on with high 130s. Dom Sheed had another big game as well. So whether that's the new 666 rule that everyone wants to talk about, whether that's having an impact for the midfielders and giving them a bit more space around the ball and the stoppages and that sort of thing. But how much we can take away from pre-season, I don't really know. I think we're just going to have to watch the first couple of rounds and adjust on the fly, I think. Did you play JLT, Matho?
Yes, I played a couple of contests. Obviously, the first week I was a bit more bigger than the second week. What I found I think what can be related to 666 is the midfielders are going to be scoring some super scores this year. If Dom Sheed can pull out 120 plus in a couple of games, I think anything's possible for the more of the stud guy players of the year of the league. So I heard Adam Treloar saying that if Tommy Mitchell was still playing, he'd probably be online for 60 to 65 touches in a game. It's going to be a little bit ridiculous in terms of the 30 possessions is going to be the new 40. I'm still going to see some massive scores.
And one thing we saw, there was no tagging, was there? So blokes like Rory Sloane and Steele Sidebottom that just go to water every week when someone goes and stands next to them, they didn't have to worry about that in JLT, and they went big as a result. So something to keep an eye on is when the real stuff happens, there's going to be a bit more accountability, and just have to keep that in mind.
Was there any particular player from the JLT you're looking for?
I think Angus Brayshaw was the one for me. He could be the number one player in the game in terms of fantasy. The way he's going, he just fills up all the stats categories, and he's just got a hunger to get the ball. And we saw last year in a few games when they were total blowouts, and he just kept running and getting the ball and kicking late goals. He was just hungry as anything. And that's what we love, isn't it? We want those hungry players. We don't want someone standing in a pocket waiting for the game to finish. We want to get those +6s near the end. So, yeah, he was a huge takeaway for me.
Look, I've got my favourite now at Carlton, which is obviously Carlton's my team, with Sam Walsh being the #1 draft pick and clearly slotted into the Carlton's midfield. Nice and easy, scoring the good scores as well in the JLT. So obviously he's going to be pretty super popular come round 1 and obviously subsequent games with his lower salary. So, but yeah, I picked him up in my season-long Ultimate Footy game. So, yeah, he's the one I was looking for the first week, and he obviously came through the goods. Yeah, let's move on to what we're going to be doing for AFL on the DFR website. And we have some exciting news coming up with our resources, including the AFL correlation for each team in the AFL. Talk me through it. What's correlation and why is it so important in DFS?
So correlations are basically looking at teammates and trying to work out whether we want to put them together in lineups or if we want to separate them in lineups. So we've got the AFL resources page. People who have been reading the DFR website will have noticed we've had BBL resources, we've had AFLW resources, we have the NBA resources still going, obviously every day. And it's just got a wealth of information to help you build your lineups. And AFL, we're hoping to launch on Friday. And so the correlations is a new feature we've got this year. And basically it looks at the sets of scores for all the players on one team, and we can try and work out if there's a positive or negative correlation between their scores. So to explain that a little bit more, last year, the best negative correlation I can remember is Stephen Cornelio and Dylan Shield from GWS.
All right.
So anytime Cornelio and Shield played, if one of them had a big score, the other one always seemed to have a lower score. So whether that was because they were splitting time in the midfield and one of them had a lot more time and the other one spent some time up forward. But if you're building your lineups, it was vital in the end to not play them together, because what you did gain from one of them going off, you'd lose with the other player not meet the season average. So if you can find those correlations that avoid playing the guys that negatively correlate in the same team, and on the flip side, look for the players that have positive correlations. And one of the best examples of that was over in Freo, with their back line of Connor Blakely, Luke Ryan, the bad Ryan.
Yeah.
And Nathan Wilson, they usually had a very high positive correlation. So when one of them scored well, they all generally scored well. So you want to play those guys together in your lineups. And generally they're chipping the ball around the back line. And you'll find that with a lot of the AFL sides that their backmen will correlate highly together. So it's just another tool that we're going to have on the resources page to help you build your lineups and build teams that hopefully can get you to the top of the leaderboard.
So other resources that we might particularly be looking for as well on the site?
We're going to have points against tables, so we can look at what positions teams are conceding more or less points to. You can work out which ruckmans to target, forwards, backs, midfielders. So that's really handy. We've got a new player out tool, so we can look at performances of players when a certain player is missing. So if a big midfielder is missing through injury, we can look at who picks up the slack and might return value as a result. We're going to have a taggers tool where we can look how the tags are affecting past scores. We can look at all the past scores for all the players in all the teams, sort of in a box score format. So there's going to be heaps of stuff, and that's going to be going live on Friday, we're hoping. But it'll definitely be up in time for round 1. And I think it's going to be the best thing out there for your AFL research. So I can't wait for it, and I'll be using it. And it's all free. So there's no reason not to get around, and you might find something you like on there. So definitely give that a check out next week. or
Sorry,
Friday.
Hef, did you say? Sorry, Hef, did you say it was free?
It's free. Everything's free. All our resources are free. NBA, if you don't play NBA, that's been free, all free. So no excuse not to get on there and have a look.
Now, I've been a keen reader of the team previews on the site as a couple of teams come out per day. Obviously, by the time the first round kicks off next week, we'll have all full team previews on the site. Let's go through just quickly through each team, and we might do what we call a bit of a buy and sell, where we'll buy any players that could potentially be breakouts or could be possibly under-owned, and possibly look at some guys who we want to sell who might not be pretty popular, but might not actually make the cut in terms of our lineups this year. Happy to talk about the teams.
Yeah, sure. Let's get into it. Just on those previews, obviously Jesse Penfold's been writing some awesome stuff for us with the NBA, but he's also going to write a heap of stuff for us for AFL, which he did last year at a different site, and he really gets DFS, so they're definitely worth reading. We've got 3 team previews on site at the moment: Adelaide, Brisbane, Carlton, and he's just looking at which players we might be looking to target and what areas what positions we can target for and against different teams. So they're definitely worth checking out. Let's go through these teams. What do you reckon, Matho?
All right, let's start with Adelaide. Who's your buy?
I'm going to buy Brodie Smith. He's coming back. He's probably going to be quite shit at ACL last year, but the obvious reason he's taking all the kickouts, and with that new kickouts rule, it looks like he's just going to be running 15 minutes and hoofing it up to the wing. So I think early in the season we can get some value out of Brodie Smith. Let's sell Rory Laird for that same reason. Brodie's going to be taking all the kickouts. He's not going to be looking for those little 15-metre chip passes to Rory Laird, so that might knock his price early in the season. He might struggle to meet value, so let's sell Rory Laird.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's have a look at the Brisbane. Who are you buying at Brisbane?
Brisbane, well, if you watch the JLT, you would see Jared Lyons, not good enough to get a game at Gold Coast, but he went berserk there against Melbourne on the weekend. He's probably going to be underpriced a little bit to start the season after his finish at the Suns. So he kicks goals and he gets a lot of contested balls. So, and he can go big. He did go big a few times last year. That's what we want especially in the GPPs. And how about we sell Steph? Steph Martin.
Yeah, I was going to say Lions has a big season. Steph Martin, another big one. He's selling on.
Let's sell some of these and Archie Smith. Geez, there's some raps on Archie Smith coming out of Brisbane. So even if he doesn't take over his role, if he's going to be splitting the ruck with him, then that's bad news for Steph Martin. So I'll be risking him early in the season.
Now, we're just receiving some live comments on our Facebook feed, and obviously it's a little bit concerned from a particular viewer who thinks that you might be a bit red, Hef. Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm just excited. I can't wait for this to start the AFL.
And
notorious troll too, that comment, I think too. But anyway, let's get on to Carlton. What do you think?
Look, let's not talk to trolls. All right, Carlton. Who are we buying in Carlton?
I came up with 2 guys for Carlton: Zach Fisher and Sam Petreski-Seaton. Right. I'm not sure which one of these 2 is going to get the extra midfield minutes, but they're both going to be priced around that sort of 65, 70 mark. And whoever gets the midfield minutes in the first few rounds, I think they're going to return some big value. So I want to buy one of those. I don't know which one just yet.
And sell?
Nick Newman.
Ooh.
Now, he's got a lot of... what do you think of Nick Newman, Matho? You're a Carlton man.
Oh, I thought he played really well in JLT1 and then didn't do much JLTL2, so that's a bit of concern. So he might be a bit of a hot and cold player. So, yeah, fair enough on the sell there.
Well, he's pretty popular because he can score at times, Newman. He did so in Sydney, but there's a chance he's just not very good at footy, Nick Newman. So I think he's going to be very popular at a low price, and I actually don't mind taking him on the first couple of rounds.
Yeah, that stings a bit. But anyway, let's move on. Collingwood, who are we buying?
Collingwood. They've got all those big midfielders that they're going to be priced up. I'm going to have a look at Darcy Moore early in the season. I noticed he took more kick-ins than anyone through the JLT, and he's quite happy to take a couple of steps outside the box so he can get a stat for it, and he's going to be very cheap. So the more he does that, the easier it's going to be for him to return some value. So let's go with Darcy Moore as the buy, and I'm going to sell Jordan De Goey, who's had a bit of an interrupted pre-season. I don't think he's going to get any midfield time coming off that ankle injury, and obviously Beams has been added to the mix. So that probably limits his upside. So we'll wait for you later in the year, Jordan De Goey.
Fair enough, fair enough. The worst team in the whole competition is Essendon. Who are we buying there?
Oh, look, I don't really know for Essendon. Is there anyone worth buying?
Not really.
No, there is. There is. Andrew McGrath, like he's the number one draft pick a couple of years ago. Last year they said he was going to move into the midfield. He didn't. This year they've got Shield. Maybe he's not going to move in there again, but if he does, like he's got to go up from his average of around the 70s. So yeah, McGrath with the buy. And
can I do the sell since I love the Bombers so much?
You can go with the sell. Who is it?
Devon Smith.
You don't like Devon Smith?
No. Look, he had a great season last year, but I think he did bugger all in the JLT, which means that everyone's going to ride his back thinking he's going to bounce back. But just with that muddly midfield that the Essendon have, I just don't see the lofty heights from last year. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's going to be expensive to start the year after such a good season last year. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Let's take him on.
All right, next one, Freo.
Freo. I thought this was one of my favourite buys out of the whole competition. Andrew Brayshaw. He's obviously got the family name. Angus is carving up, and Andrew looks hot on his heels. With no Lockie Neal there in the midfield, Andrew Brayshaw looks ready to step up. Had a great pre-season. He's going to be priced pretty low to start with, and yeah, he looks an obvious one.
Yeah, I like that one. One. Who are we selling?
As far as selling,
there's plenty there to sell.
There is, isn't there? There's not many big names really to sell from Freo because Neil's gone, so the big names, they're going to have to carry the load. So I'm going to sell Matt Taberner. They've got Jesse Hogan, Rory Lobb, they're coming in. Rory Lobb's taking his second ruck role. You might not even get a game, Matt Taberner. And as promising as he looked last year at certain times, I'm pretty happy to take him on this year.
Fair enough. All right, the studs down Geelong. Who are we buying down there since there's so many studs already in the team?
There is. We're looking for some upside. I think Parfitt. He showed a couple of times last season when he was given a good run on the ball that he can go really big. I think it was even 140 in there at some stage. And just with the talk of Gary Ablett playing forward, Selwood maybe running to half back, even though that's probably a pretty awful decision. If Parfitt gets a bit more of that bid time, I love that upside. He's going to be priced pretty reasonably to start the year to get a bit of him in my lineups. And I mentioned Gary Ablett. I'll be selling him to start with. He's had a pretty slow pre-season. He's obviously not going to be up and going round one. They're going to want to try and cuddle him through the year and get him ready for finals. So at what's probably going to be a pretty big price to start off with, I won't be having much Gary Ablett in my teams.
Fair enough. Might be a bit interesting when if he prices drops. There could be a tipping point later in the year.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at Gold Coast.
Gold Coast. Is there anyone worth buying at the Gold Coast?
Oh, no, not really. But surely.
I think there's one.
Yeah.
I think there's a young fella called Braden Fiorini. He had a really good pre-season. I don't know if he's any good at footy, but he does know how to find the ball. He does know how to rack up fantasy points. So I think there's probably still a bit of upside for him there. And I know Steve's getting a bit more contested ball through the pre-season. So if I have to buy someone from the Suns, it's going to be Fiorini. If I want to sell someone, there's been a lot of buzz on Anthony Miles coming up to the Suns. But there's probably a reason he's at his third club. I know he can find the ball, but it's a lot of handballs, doesn't spread well to get many marks. How much upside does he have, really? I think for a guy that's going to be pretty high owned early in the season, he is a guy I'll be looking to fade.
All right, on to the Giants of the Western Sydney. Who are we looking there?
This is another guy I love, Tim Taranto. He's just been enormous in the pre-season. We saw a glimpse last year when he used to get a bit of mid-time when the likes of Josh Kelly were out, and he was putting up some pretty big numbers. Third year now, ready to break out. I'm in love with Taranto this year, and I think we can get some money out of him before his price goes up to where it should be.
Yeah, love it. Who are we selling?
It's a hard one. They're all these young fellas at GWS that they're still on the up, but everyone loves Josh Kelly, and he's always highly owned, but we haven't seen him in the pre-season. Maybe we can take him on in the first couple of rounds, just be a bit different to the field. No knock on Josh Kelly, but he might just take a little bit to get going. So, and if we're in love with Taranto, then maybe we want him to be taking the ball that Josh Kelly might otherwise be getting. So let's risk him early, but not for too long.
Yeah. We might have to look at those correlations for the GWS to see if that hot take is worth it.
Good call.
Hawthorn. Who are we looking at here at Hawthorn?
Hawthorn. So who's everyone looking at Hawthorn at the moment, Matho? James Warple, aren't they?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Sammy Mitchell version 2, apparently.
Yeah, so I'm going to go away from that. I'm going to go with a little guy called James Cousins, who has been unreal in the pre-season. He tore up their intra-club. He carried them in their first JLT game when they went to Brisbane with half a team, and then he was pretty good again against Richmond. I think all the attention will probably be on Warple. I think Cousins is probably going to be a bit cheaper, and I think he's going to go just as good, if not better. So when everyone's on Warple, I'm going to be going on Cousins, and I hope that pays off.
Good call. All right, who are we selling?
I think Isaac Smith is a pretty easy target for the taggers. And with no Mitchell, obviously they didn't tag Mitchell a whole lot, but Mitchell's not there to feed the ball out to the runners as much this year. And he's going to be such an easy target, Smith, and he doesn't handle those tags at all well. So I think he's got a great name, which will see him probably owned more than he should be. But I won't be owning him too much early in the season.
Yeah, another hot and cold player, old Isaac Smith. Could win you a big GPP, but you just can't be relied on him. Melbourne, the prelims, finalists of last year, looking to go one better. Who are we looking here?
I mentioned him before. Angus Brayshaw has just been unbelievable. Probably since halfway through last year, he's just put up some huge numbers. And I'm a little bit worried that he's going to start getting a bit of attention just because he's getting so much of the ball, but he doesn't do a lot of damage. I think he'll just keep racking it up. So he's going to be high priced, but he can really go with huge upside, even at sort of 17,000, 18,000. And I saw a stat that the JLT, if he played 100% game time, he would have averaged 202 over his 2 games. So
oh wow, okay, that's pretty big.
That's firepower not many people have. So yeah, love Angus Brayshaw. Ever since he's been off that fizzy cordial that he was addicted to, he's really come good. So let's buy Gus.
Well, if he takes his helmet off, he might be in trouble.
No, leave it on. Maybe that was the secret. Yeah. As far as the sell, Jack Viney, once again, he's had some. He went off with a little niggle up there in Brisbane. I think Jack Viney's got the upside that you sort of want to get from these midfielders at this stage. At the price that he sort of gets up to. He doesn't get a lot of the loose ball, and obviously Brayshaw gets a lot of that himself. Viney's doing a lot of the hard work in there. So while he might be able to make value, I don't think he's going to go too far over it. So Viney's one I don't want to be playing a whole lot of.
Now, North Melbourne is the next team on the list here. Who are we buying here?
So they brought in a few new players, obviously North Melbourne. Jared Pollock's the one that stands out. They've always been lacking a good outside runner, North Melbourne. They've got a lot of inside guys. Cunnington, Higgins has been doing a lot of work inside for them. Ahern came on the scene last year. He's another guy who's predominantly inside. So I think Pollock's going to get a lot of that chipping ball on the outside and give them a lot of run. And he's had a great pre-season. So I think he's still got room to grow, Jared Pollock.
Keep moving to the cell. Let's have a look at the cell for North Melbourne.
So sort of along the same lines as Anthony Miles, we've got Dom Tyson joining North Melbourne, his third team. He's a bit of a limited inside midfielder, doesn't have great disposal. And he's probably going to be popular at a lowish price given his past history of being able to score. But as I said, North Melbourne are quite strong inside, and I'm not sure that there's that much room for him to come in and dominate. So I think he'll be popular. So I want to stay away from Dom Tyson.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's get through the other teams here, including Port Adelaide. I think I know who you're going to buy here.
I'm going to buy Rocky. He's been quite costly the last couple of years with injuries and whatever else, but geez, he looks fit. Coming off 100.
Yes. Yeah, looks like we lost Hef here. Let's see if we can get him back on the line. If not, I'll continue going through his buy and sells. I've got some rough notes here. Obviously, he's going to buy Rocky. No wines early in the competition, so he's obviously buy cone date. He's got here Brad Ebert as his sell. He's turning 29 this year, and we won't be slowing down, as he said. And there's no forward roll through the preseason, so we're not sure about old Ebert. So I think he's going to be a sell for Port Adelaide. Let's go on to Richmond. He was pretty big on Mr. Higgins, his second year up the ground, and he might actually get a better role in the midfield, walking through half forward. He's still been a little goal sneak, so he could explode for a couple of good daily fantasy scores, no matter what. Look, Richmond is a hard team to pot when they play a good team football, but probably maybe Shawnee Grigg is the one that might be selling. Yeah, but hard to fade or to sell any of those players there. Let's go on to St Kilda. We're pretty big on Jack Steele. Obviously, with no Stephen to start the season to start with, he's ready to take over the mantle of the midfield here at St Kilda. So I'll be looking at Steele, and I'm sure Hef is looking at him as well. Pretty obvious sell candidate is old Daniel Hannaberry. Coming in, interrupted injury pre-season, unreliable body. I think his time was done in Sydney with a crook body, and I'm assumed that his body's not going to hold up this year as well. Over at the Swannies in Sydney, we like Georgie Hewitt, who will be off the leash this season to step up into an aging midfield. So people like JKK, McVeigh are all not getting any younger here. So I reckon Sydney will be looking to these younger recruits or younger midfielder to take the mantle this year. Over at the Premiers at West Coast, Willie Rioli is what Hef is looking to buy here. His notes include he's a frequently talented player and could see some time through the midfield as well, so highly rated with his epic grand final performance last year. So let's keep an eye on Willie Rioli. Look, they're the Premiers, so we're not really selling them. I guess we might have to look at a few rounds, but hey, let's give them the mantle of the Premiers and not sell anyone this time of year. And finally, at the Western Bulldogs, well, Jackson Trengove is probably going to be the buy here if old Timmy English is not up to the rigours of his small frame for the Bulldogs. So we'll keep an eye on Jackson Trengove, especially at the low owned in contests. we're selling on Toby McLean. I think a new role for him this year up forward for the Bulldogs, and the way that the coach of the Bulldogs, Luke Beveridge, tends to shuffle his players around at any notice could spell trouble for fantasy scoring for those second kind of tier players. Look, your Lockie Hunters and are still going to score big, but Toby McLean is our sell. So, as you can probably see, we still lost Hef, and hopefully he might be coming back very shortly. But if he doesn't come back, let's quickly move on with the show, and we'll talk about the 100K next week. This evening, Draft Stars actually released their salaries, and we're going to ask Hef some initial thoughts of the particular salaries for next week, and obviously the number one there is Cripps. Players like Sam Walsh are under 10K. Setterfield's under 10K as well. So it's going to be. We've got a whole week to look at this. So, hello, Hef. Where'd you go? Okay, why are you coming back, Hef? We're talking about the Draft Star salary for the 100K for next week. Richmond is obviously evenly spread. Have you had a quick look yet, Hef?
At Draft Stars, I did have a brief look through. I wanted to see what price I could take on Nick Newman at. Saw he was about 9,000. Patrick Cripps stood out, didn't he? He's way more expensive than everyone else. I think we'll have a big go at this next week, will we?
I think we'll come back next Wednesday and we'll do a full proper preview of this huge contest that Draft Stars have put up, and we'll do it justice for us.
Yep.
Now, last topic before we go for the show this evening, and thank you for joining us throughout the show. Hope give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. But late news came through late this afternoon that Draft Stars are introducing the concept of D1, which also stands for Drop One. So you have the ability in a particular contest to drop your lowest score from your lineup. Big news for the Australian DFS community. Initial thoughts, Hef, as it was the late breaking news late today.
Yeah. Well, I play a bit of NBA and obviously trying to keep track of DraftKings and having a look at what's going on over in the States and notice that this is pretty big. When it came in on FanDuel, they give people the option to drop their lowest score, and that came in with a lot of fanfare. I actually don't mind it coming in for NBA at this time of the year, because if you play NBA, there's a lot of silly buggers going on with who's playing and who's not, and when they're in and out, and it's clearly angering a lot of people that are trying to play NBA and they don't want to get a zero ruining their lineup. So good on Draft Stars for giving it a try. And I noticed they're going to run 2 contests on NBA, one with the drop one and one without. So maybe it will come down to what the people vote for and what they prefer to play.
Look, I actually saw it for the NRL contest for Saturday and Friday as well, which is kind of reintroduced back from Draft Star. So I actually see it as a bit of a positive for our NRL DFS players, because we do get that late news for those second or third games where a particular player that you didn't really receive any good mail about is actually being pulled out of the side. So I see that as it's a big positive for NRL. Also, obviously, big positive for NBA as well. So this time of year, with the season now winding up, the last 15 to 20 games of the season, we're going to see teams that not going to produce their best teams, and then they're not going to tell the public that they're going to be putting out teams that they're not full strength. Do you see any other positives for Hef? Yeah,
it is a tank fest NBA by this time of the year. So if that's going to keep people engaged with wanting to play NBA every day, then that's a good thing. There's a bit of chatter going on with Twitter. A few of the big players coming out and saying what they like and what they don't like. And the general theme is maybe it's not such a good thing for AFL, because AFL, unlike NRL, we have a lot of coverage on who's unlikely and who's going to be playing, and it happens, but it's probably a lot rarer for a player to pull out without any forewarning. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth when it does happen, but I think to add it into AFL and turn it into an 8-man 95k salary game, that's going to be a win for the sharp players and maybe not so good for the recreational players. So where they might benefit from not getting a zero and sort of walking away pretty disgusted by the whole situation, they might pay for it in the long run. So I think hopefully Draft Stars will take it on its merits for each sport and work out what it works for and what it doesn't, and people will probably vote with their feet, I think.
I have to agree with that, Hef. You know, having that on a multi-game slate is probably going to be a positive. Possibly having it on a single game slate could probably be a negative experience in terms of you're actually punting the cheapest player on a slate, and this, as I said, it's an 8 out of 9 contest for it.
I don't see it coming in on the single game slate. So I had a look at the NRL lobby and noticed it was only on the multi game slate. Obviously, we can change our teams right up to lock on the single game. So I think they'll avoid it on the single games, and it probably has its place in the multi. But we're going to have to see how it goes, I guess. As I said last time we were on, I was sort of against the big bash changes that Draft Stars brought in, and come the end of the season, I sort of conceded and said they were right and I was wrong. So there's positives and negatives for what they've brought in, and jump on Twitter and get involved with the conversation and let your thoughts be heard if you feel strongly one way or the other. But
So next Wednesday we'll obviously have our next episode of the Down Under show, and obviously we'll have a massive preview for round 1 for the AFL. So let's give it a week and see how it goes over the weekend. We might put that in the agenda items for next week, Hef. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds good. We'll see how it goes, and you can tell me how it went on NRL for starters, and we'll see how it goes on NBA too, because I think it's probably best place for NBA over anything. But
excellent. All right, so let's just wrap these things out for this evening. Thank you for all the viewers who have been watching us live tonight, and obviously we'll be able to put a recording on this on our YouTube page, so make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page and hit the like button for our shows. We're going to have a lot of content coming your way in the next few weeks, including some introductions to our resources on the DFR website. We'll go through some step-by-step tutorials on how to use these particular resources. And feel free to send us some feedback or ask some questions if you're not quite sure about the particular resources. Hef, thanks again for joining me tonight. Anything you want to add before we sign off for this evening?
I'm just going to go and ring up my NBN provider and work out what's going on before there. But thanks for watching. Check out the resources. We're going to be flying with these AFL previews this week, so give them a read. And see you next week.
Thanks, Hef. We'll see you all next week, next Wednesday. Big show.
Thanks, mate. Bye.